start off by each individual will give you guys one tip that helped all of us reach the level of play that we've made it to. Something that clicked for us that has been the breakthrough moment. And so we're going to share that. So hopefully that's something you guys can think about. And then we're going to open it up to question and answers. And what we'll do is you'll ask the question. If you want to do it to an individual person, that's great, all for it. But if you want to generalize that question, you can ask that, and we will go down a line and give you our perspective on that question. So hopefully something that one of us says clicks and helps you understand that type of answers your question, and you can use it, because what I say might not work for you. Our bodies are very different, but what A-Ray says might be the exact thing you need to hear to understand what you're doing. So don't be shy. Ask a lot of questions. There's no stupid questions, just stupid people. Sorry, I'm kidding. But it's all good. We want to answer everything, even if you think it's the most basic question of what's the biggest difference between a putter and a driver. Ask it. We want you to walk away with something that is that ask AJ. We want you guys to walk away with exactly what you need.
And we can answer that one too.
Yeah, what you need to be better at disc golf, and because there's a reason we're here, where people paved the way before us to make things awesome. So we're really, really happy that you guys are here to help support us, and we're going to give you guys something back. So I'll go ahead and introduce these guys. We have local Texas A-Ray, if you guys haven't seen him. Fantastic golfer. Big fan. We have Ron Converse Jr. He is a two-time Grandmasters World Champion. And guys, make sure you guys check out his suspects. These are limited edition. Check these out if you want to support Ron on his tour and to playing some more. My favorite person here, my fiance Tina Sinitis, my travel partner and my partner for life, which is awesome. So she's here. She's an incredible woman golfer in the FPO division, and she is on the rise. So she's doing a lot of good things. Down the line, recently added to the team, AJ Risley out of San Diego, California. He has been a tour grinder. He's been out there. He's made his name, and he's one of my best friends. And he's an incredible golfer, and he has a lot of knowledge about disc golf. So, thank you, AJ, for being here. Thanks. You may have heard his name on a podcast. Robert McCall, local Texas guy, used to live in the Austin area. He's a fabulous golfer, knows his stuff, and he's our manager. He's got incredible hair, and we are so happy he's here. It's windy, and that thing looks perfect. It hasn't moved.
I'm sure my hair breaks.
And I'm Eric Oakley. I grew up in Grapevine, Texas, so every time I get to be back in the DFW area, it's awesome. I feel home, and I love how big the community has gotten in disc golf, and I think this is one of the best places for disc golf. And I'm a tour grinder like AJ, hopefully soon to be world champion like Ron Con, but we all have to work at our goals and aspirations. So stoked to be here, and thank you all. Anybody want to lead off with the tip? Does anybody want to give their tip or breakthrough, or should I start? A-Ray looks like he wants it. All right, so A-Ray's got the mic, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to start so I can say this one before the other guys do. And that's, I'm closer to being an amateur than a pro, so I'm like a lot of you people out there. When you're learning to play disc golf, the mistake I made was getting discs that were too fast for my arm right off the bat. You want to start off with stuff that's neutral and understable, slower speeds till you get adjusted to it, till you learn your form. Start off with the slow stuff and keep it simple. Right? We'll talk about that for you individually.
All right, so mine is really basic, and you'll hear it a bunch of times from everyone that you get good advice from, and that is don't think you're going to learn to play really well on a golf course. What you want to do is go out on a flat field and throw. That's why you hear people say field work, and throw and throw and throw and see what those discs are doing and learn the disc. More than anything else, you can apply a lot of the lessons you learned once you have seen how the disc flies and you have a better understanding of what you're doing to make it do that. But get out there, throw it in the field, back, forth, back, every which direction until you know what it's going to do. And that's really the start. If you want to get better fast, take it to the field.
Love it, love it. Yeah, we're on. So, for me, it was understanding and eliminating expectations, especially when it came to tournament play. I know all of you have gone out and shot great practice rounds. What is for you, you've improved, and then you go to a tournament and you're scratching your head and you're wondering why it wasn't that good. But you may have had an expectation of shooting that same number that you did in practice. So eliminating that and understanding that every tournament round you go and play is about playing disc golf. It's not about shooting a specific number, birdieing this hole and parring this hole and doing all that. You are playing disc golf and you are doing the best disc golf you can for that day. Sometimes that's 900 and that's 920. That might be 850. Sometimes it's 1040 and 1050. It all depends. So play your best disc golf without any expectations.
If I had to say, this seems like a segment for broad tips. We can get into more specifics later if anybody wants to, but as a broad breakthrough moment that I had, it would be, I'd break it down into 2 sentences. The first one is enjoy and remember the positives. The second one is learn from the negatives. So whenever you do anything, whether it's in a tournament or practicing, practicing out here at this course or in your backyard putting, the throws you make, they're either going to be positive or negative. And the only way to get better is to remember those positive moments and store them in a positive memory bank in your mind. So that way, when you get into different situations, such as a tournament or where things are on the line, you can go back to that positive memory bank. And, if you've made enough positive memories and you've held on to them, you can say, oh, I've done this before. I know how to do this. And it felt good when I did it. So let's do it right now. And on that second part, a lot of things that we do are unfortunately negative. I'll admit that I have a lot of negative things on and off the course. But the only thing we can do if we want to succeed is learn from those negative things that we do. And if you do that, if you enjoy the positive and remember the positive and then also learn from the negative, you'll be just fine.
AJ. All right, my breakthrough moment, can you hear me okay if I do it like this? Okay. Keep it here. I'd say my breakthrough moment is 2 things that go hand in hand. And I think they're 2 of the most important things that you can do on a disc golf course. Have fun, that's cool and everything. For me, if I am playing with confidence, then I'm always playing better, right? And there's kind of a chicken and an egg thing with confidence, right? How do you get confident? Well, by playing well. But what happens when you play well? You're most likely confident, right? And so a lot of it really with confidence is just kind of fake it till you make it. But it's also it's based on the preparation that you've done, right? If you've gotten into the field, if you've done the work that you need to, then you can be confident that you can pull off the shot that you want to, the putt that you want to. And kind of the thing that goes hand in hand with that is one big breakthrough for me is when I realized that on every single last shot that I ever throw, I have to follow through. If I'm not following through, I might as well not even throw the shot, right? Same, especially on a putt. It doesn't matter where it's from. If I don't follow through, I could close my eyes and tell you that disc is not going in the basket, right? So for me, those 2 things go hand in hand. Number 1 is just to be confident. That comes from preparation, but it also just comes from believing in yourself, not to do anything crazy, not to go for the hero shot necessarily, but believing that you are able to pull off the things that you've practiced, right? Because if you're not allowing yourself to do it mentally, you are definitely not going to do it. You have to believe in yourself if you want to succeed in disc golf. Well, and in life, but definitely disc golf. And number 2 is when I am confident and when I'm playing well, following through is imperative to every last thing that we do in disc golf. So those are my things. Here you go, Tina.
Disc golf is life, so
Yeah, so disc golf and life together.
All right, so I kind of missed what a lot of people said, but I will still give you my favorite thing. A lot of it has to do, just the last couple years has completely changed the way I play disc golf, and it's all about where your focus is while you're on the tee pad or putting. So for me, it's all about honing into what your last thought is before you let go of the disc. So if you're on the tee pad and there's 2 trees in front of you and you need to hit that gap between those 2 trees, if all you're thinking about is hitting that tree that you keep hitting every time you throw the shot, you're going to keep doing that. So it's all about recognizing where your brain is. And if you are thinking, all right, don't hit that tree, don't hit that tree, you need to get it back into your brain that your focus is to execute that shot, to throw it in the fairway, to hit that line. So I find myself very distracted sometimes, and that's really hard to execute any shot you're trying to do. So for me, it's all about keeping myself in check and figuring out, all right, where's my brain? Am I focusing on a putt? Yes, I am. I'm going to make this putt. And that's the last thing I think about before I let go. And also, I'm going to hit that gap when I'm on the tee pad. You know, you can spray and pray, and you can, I guess it's just all about that last focus before you let go of the disc. Make sure you're in a good mindset, whether it's positive thinking or just making sure that you're focused on simply executing the shot. So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So you guys may have seen some of his videos. Danny just finished his round. Danny Lindahl drove all the way down from Arkansas. We're so stoked to have him here. Check out his videos. Check out his YouTube. He's got a bunch of stuff on the Dynamic Disc page as well. So he's going to give you guys a tip real quick.
Are we doing like form tips or like just overall mental tips? Breakthrough. Okay, I would definitely say at the end of all my videos I say slow is smooth and smooth is far. And that's definitely, that rings true at every shot you're throwing, in your putts and your drives, everything. Just the more you focus on being smooth and not tensing up, the better results you're going to get. That's why lots of people will start from a standstill, because they don't have those high expectations, and they'll just be nice and smooth and focus on their technique, and that's going to get you the best and most consistent results.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll open up to the question and answer segment. You got a little bit a little bit of information from all of us that, I mean, you can tell each and every one was different. Even though Tina just mentioned that, you know, she might have said the same thing Danny just said, is there are a lot of things that are so true about disc golfers in general, that we all make the same mistakes. So if you are out there on the course, we've made the same mistake you have. Just remember that. We've missed a 12-footer. We've missed a 5-footer. We've thrown it straight out of bounds.
We all started from the bottom, just like
yeah.
everybody else.
now we're here.
And now we're here.
And now we're here.
So let's open up to some questions. Who wants to lead us off?
Okay, so as you get older, it becomes much more important to keep a constant regime of fitness. If you want to stay in on top of your game, you got to stay in shape. And I mean, really depends on how much you want to put into it, but it's a lot easier to move the way you need to move if you're fit. And I'm not saying you got to be, running marathons or anything like that, but you got to be able to put an athletic move on that disc, and you need to be in a position where you're not going to hurt yourself doing stuff. So one is obviously practice. If you're going to practice the way you play, if you want to play a lot in tournament rounds, you're going to have to expect to be able to go out there and build up your time practicing until you can do the same amount of time that you would practicing before you go out, so that when you get to a tournament, you don't come in huffing and puffing and wore out. You're just going to hurt yourself if you do. The second one would be continue to try and smooth your form down. It's not about strength. It's about a nice clean form and smooth. He's right. Smoother is better. You just got to throw a nice clean form. You don't have to throw it hard to get far. You have to throw it fast. It's got a good airspeed. It doesn't have to be a hard, muscled up throw. It has to be smooth and quick. So it's a whole different sort of thought process when you go out there and you're trying to get distance. That's going to change as you get older. I've lost some distance over time. And I'm having to rearrange the discs I throw too. As my throw changes, I have to go back, reevaluate which ones are doing a better job for me right now. And so I have a lot of discs I throw, and I'm constantly checking it out and seeing what I can do to make my bag of tricks a little bit better.
I'm going to add something to it because I'm actually a year older than Ron.
He's an old guy.
For me personally, you know, and I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'5", I weigh 260 pounds, but you still got to stay in shape. The key for disc golf is flexibility more than anything else. So, and people laugh, but I get out to the course if I'm going to play or if I'm going to do field work. I do at least 20, 25 minutes of stretching and warming up, even when it's good weather, because at my age, you have to do that because I don't want to have those nagging injuries, especially if I'm going to have one of those days where I got to play 2 rounds today in a tournament and then 2 rounds tomorrow. You want to be flexible, you want to stretch out, and that really helps me personally a lot.
So, we got any more questions? What? AJ, go for
What?
it. Add it.
Yeah, like A-Ray said, stretching before and after is great. And then also specifically, if you go to the Dynamic Discs YouTube channel and look at the Disc Golf Strong videos on there, Seth Muncie is killing it with ways to get stronger. So that way, you know, you have more muscles surrounding the tendons that you're exercising and using over and over when we're playing. So those are specifically great. You know, you can kind of add that to your regimen, you know, every day or every other day to get a little stronger, so that way you can play longer.
For sure. Yep.
That rhymed.
Awesome.
You talked about, the question was, I mentioned earlier to start off with slower speeds and more neutral, understable discs when you're first starting off. Where would I draw the line at? If you're talking about a very beginning disc golfer, I'm just now starting out. If you were just now starting out and I was recommending to you, I would say for the first part of your learning experience, only throw putters and mid-ranges till you get good clean form, and don't throw anything that's overstable. It should be a neutral flying disc. A good neutral flying disc is like the original truth, would be a good disc. A good putter, I'm not going to go into that argument, but you know, several of us throw the Warden as a putter, and it comes in 4 or 5 different plastics. Nice about keeping you learning how to throw straight and learning how to clean yourself with good form. That's what I would start with. And then probably a couple of understable discs, like maybe the Deputy, like maybe Warrant would be a great one. The Patrol will be coming out soon. That's what I would start you out with. Those are speed 5 and speed 4, speed 3. Yeah, 5 and under.
So to determine what's understable, you will look, let's grab a stock stamp disc and we can show you. So we got a Criminal here, which is not an understable disc. You see the turn has a 1 turn, and that is a positive 1 turn. So this is going, you want a negative number like on the Sheriff where you have that -1. So the more negative number you have, I think the Witness is a -3. That would be the next step up after you get comfortable throwing those mid-ranges. But as we've said, like an Escape is a great one with a -0.5 as you jump up. That's another good fairway driver. As that goes, be looking at those numbers, but don't go as these are the Bible. These are honestly a guide. Discs fly differently for all different players. So it might be an understable disc for Ron or Danny, but for Tina and myself, it might be very straight. You never know until you go and throw it. So that's the one thing that you guys should always do is go test your discs and see what they can do. Ron's going to add to it. I love it.
Okay, so when you're looking at discs and you're looking at what they would consider the speeds and all that, part of it is with a higher speed disc, there's more plastic on the edge, and it's more gyroscopic. And so with the slower speed, like a putter, there's more plastic in the middle and the edges are much smaller. Have you ever played catch with a Whammo catch disc or something like that, old school? Frisbee?
On the beach.
On the beach? Okay. Well, those things, the weight's very evenly distributed, and so they're understable. You have to throw them out with a little bit of hyzer and let them pop up. And if you get too hard on them, they flip over and they roll. And that's very true of most of what we would consider slower speed, neutral stability discs, in that you have to throw them out nice and smooth and flat, or they'll show you where you have a form flaw, because they're not going to have that plastic in the outside to correct it gyroscopically and make it come out of it. So if you want to learn forehand, if you want to learn backhand, doesn't matter what throw you're trying to throw, learn using something that's, not got a lot of plastic around the outside, and you'll learn your form a lot better, a lot faster.
Love it. It's just
It'll be opposite.
Yeah, it's just simply based around that you are spinning the disc in the opposite direction of most players, so it is going to finish in the opposite direction. So there's nothing that you're going to need to find specific discs wise. The same type of disc that will work for a right-handed person of you. Duplicate you, it's right-handed. The same discs are going to work.
The only thing I would say, because a lot of courses are designed for right-hand, backhand throwers, you might find yourself wanting some more understable stuff, because you're going to have to flip something over when we get to throw a hyzer. So just keep that in mind. Maybe work on that turnover shot, something that you can throw with your left hand and it's going to flip up and go to the left. The question is, when it's windy, do you disc up to something more overstable, or do you work on your angles instead? Personally, I have always disced up to something more overstable, but also kept very understable too. Because if I have a tailwind, my overstable discs are just going to be the biggest beefcakes ever. So I do set up my bag a little bit different, just in case it's very windy. But if you can control your disc and keep them as flat as possible, you're going to have a lot more luck getting the shots that you want. Try to throw like you normally would, but just keep them really, really flat. The more you have the flight plate up in either direction, the more the wind is going to manipulate it. So even if you have a tiny little hyzer, it's going to just blow it all the way up. So he's the man.
So it really depends on the effect you want. If you want, no matter what you're doing, if it's windy, you want the wind to work for you rather than against you. And there's really only one time where it's against you, and that's if it's a straight headwind and you can't do anything but, you want to worry about, the finish, or you want to worry about making it through a gap. And then, it's more the shot considerations that would affect what I would throw as far as that goes. The other one is, like she said, having some of the understables mixed in and being able to play the angles, so that when I throw, if I'm worried about the wind picking it up and sailing it away, I want the wind to hit the top of the disc. So I can throw something that's, if I say I have a wind that's coming from left to right and I'm right-handed, I can throw an understable as long as I throw a hyzer with it, so that the edge is down and it doesn't pop up. If it pops up, it's gone. The wind's going to come underneath it and it's going to take it away. You can use that to get more distance if you want, by adding the speed of the wind to your throw. So I consider having a windy day to be a bonus for distance, and for a lot of shots I can't pull off if it's neutral. You give me a windy day and I've got a 10% or 20% added to my speed, depending on how windy it is. So I'm all about that. But you want to work with it. You don't want to try and brute force fight it, or you'll end up very, very tired and usually unhappy. Anybody?
Yeah. Anybody want to add to that? That seems pretty spot on. You can do both. I would say is just finding what works best for you and what the shot calls for it, because there are going to be plenty of times. Yeah, When it's windy, get out and throw into it. Throw when it's a left to right, throw when it's a right to left, and do the diagonal motions because you never know exactly what type of wind you're going to have. And you, as AJ mentioned earlier, having that positive memory bank that you can dial back to is always, always crucial.
When picking what disc to throw, I know lots of people know to throw understable discs in a tailwind because your disc is going to stable up, but it's also important to throw something slower because if you think about the disc is leaving your hand at the same speed, but relative to the wind, it's going a lot slower. So in a tailwind, my maximum distance driver is like a Defender, which is a huge 13 rim, but in a tailwind, my farthest flying disc is probably a Renegade or like an Escape because it's slower relative to the wind. It's going to be flying its normal speed, but I can't get a Defender up to speed in a tailwind. And then the opposite's for a headwind. If you have a headwind, you want to throw a little bit faster discs, but you're not ripping on them for all you're worth. You still want to throw it like it's a slower disc. Just trust the wind to work with you and shape the shot you need.
When you're having troubles with release problems and things like that, and you might be grip blocking as we call it, it's important to make sure that our bodies are in a good line, but also get out and throw and play catch. Grab a soft putter or a Latitude 64 Bite or the Dynamic Disc Aviator that is more of a Frisbee style disc. And what that will do is and it's one of the most fun things to do with a friend, a partner, somebody, and you get out and you throw and you get used to, all right, I'm going to release it at this point, because when we're throwing high-speed discs and we're throwing really power shots, we never think about, all right, open my hand now. The disc rips from our hands, but when you're throwing those control shots, you're actually having to release the disc. And if you ever have that problem, just get comfortable with not trying to throw so hard. And getting that time in when playing catch will make sure you're hitting your target because you will have somebody to throw to. Yeah. You want to add? Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the catch game. When you play catch, you not only get a really fast reinforcement because they're going to say, "Hey, throw it to me," but it's also you're going to be doing it back and forth a lot. You're going to not just set up, throw a shot, walk down there, pick it up. You're going to be going back and forth, and in the space of a minute or two, you got a whole bunch of shots instead of one shot and then a 5-minute walk. So you can get a lot more practice, a lot more positive reinforcement, have a good time with a friend, and I think catch is a really, really good thing.
Wonderful. Danny, to you.
I have a bit of a soapbox about grip lock. You're talking about grip lock, and Eric's right, you got to practice those shorter shots. But most people, when they talk about grip lock, the problem isn't your grip. If you're throwing a powerful shot, you should be pulling the disc straight. So if the disc is moving straight, my fingers aren't strong enough to hold onto it. For a full power throw, I'm holding onto the disc for everything I'm worth, and it's going straight. Because the whole disc is moving straight, it's not going to change directions at the end. If you're struggling with grip lock, the disc probably is not moving straight. It's probably coming out and around, either behind your shoulders or just swinging away from your chest, and that means the disc is curving, and if you grip it tighter, then you are going to hold onto it longer, and then it's going to go to the right. So, grip lock is not your grip. That's it.
Who's got more questions? You want to add to it?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd say that Danny is so correct. It's disgusting. I didn't realize that until just now, how correct he was about that specific topic. Oh my gosh! Wow, nice, good job. Holy cow! But what it comes down to is patience and repetitions. If you look at everybody here, if we all had throw-dometers.
Yes!
Thank you. So, airline food, what's up with that, But anyways, okay, sorry. If we each had a ticker for how many throws we've made. A throw-dometer, yes. It would be pretty high for each one of us. And, it's, basically like an oil change. We've all got a warranty, and once we get to, say 100,000 throws, then we feel comfortable and confident with what we're doing. So really that's, all these tips are very good. There's different grips that you can try out that'll work for different kinds of shots, work for different people. But really, big picture, it just comes down to the number of throws. And there's no one number, but the more throws, the better. And so if you're patient with that, like Ron and Eric said, playing catch is great for that. And because you're learning about how you're throwing, you're learning, how tight is too tight on the disc, how loose is too loose, just to not only get that release, but to get that release at, too loose, too tight, just right, mama bear, right? But just, it's stuff like that. It just comes down to patience and repetitions. Yeah, totally. So if you really enjoy playing disc golf and throwing Frisbees and watching them fly,
Makes it easier.
yeah, it does make it a lot easier. So there you go.
Totally.
So, can I ask a question for you? So you asked, you're getting older, you have less time. You're getting older, you have less time, and you're starting to fall back into old habits because you aren't playing as much as you'd like. Are you unable to give 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes every other day, 15 minutes every 3 days? Could you do that? Maybe, right? And so I use it as, I know some of these other guys actually have real jobs. I'm lucky to not. But when I had a real job, I took time on my lunch. I went and grabbed a quick sandwich, went to the field, threw as much as I could, putted as much as I could, and then went back. If that was 20 minutes, awesome. If I got 45 minutes, I was stoked. I made sure that I got every little bit of time I could because as most of us are, we are completely taken by this sport. And we love it so much, and that's why we're here. You're doing it. You find ways to watch it on YouTube and all that. So if you can find a way 10 minutes, 15 minutes just to putt or just to go and throw, you don't even have to have a purpose, just getting out and throwing. That's where the catch comes in as well. If you have somebody you could play with, that's great. But try and do that first. But I'm going to pass it over to people who actually have real day jobs.
Does anyone have a day job?
All right, so this is where I started out, and you're back in the field, and don't limit yourself to, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to throw a shot and then I'm going to walk down and pick it up. No, take your bag, throw your whole bag and practice a specific shot that you're trying to practice. Okay, go down, pick up all your discs, throw them back the other way. You can throw 30 or 40 throws in about 5 minutes. And you can really get a good workout in a half hour, and enough to where you're thinking, okay, I'm done. If you get out there and you're trying to practice some long stuff, you can wear yourself out if you throw, walk back down, get them, throw them back.
Remember, you don't need a disc golf course to
No,
practice.
field work. It's all about the field work, man. That's where you get better. You see what they all do. There's so many different benefits from going out and doing field work. The first one is you get the reps. So you have a good idea of your muscle, memory. The second one is you get a better idea of what your discs are doing. Each one of those, if you're not just throwing one mold, you're throwing all the stuff in your bag, you start to learn this one, it's gonna hyzer out, or this one, it's gonna flip over and roll. And you learn how to make the corrections you need to make. And you can do all that in a very, very short amount of time.
And I want to add, you can be creative. There's lots of things you can do to keep yourself sharp, even when you don't have time. Like Eric was saying, 15 minutes a day. When I was working full time, I may not get a chance to practice every day because I had a very demanding job. But I might go out and grab 5 or 6 wardens and say, I got 15 minutes. The neighbors didn't know this, by the way. I'm gonna practice some Anheuser up shots, just from my yard to the next yard. 5 quick times, go down there, grab me the other way, I'm hyzering back to my yard. So I'm practicing a couple of things just to keep me sharp. And like Ron said, you can do that in 15 minutes. I might get 50 or 60 of those in 15 minutes. If you don't have one of those resistance bands to practice throwing when you can't go outside, you know, a lot of people have one of those and they'll put it on their bedpost or whatever, and they'll practice their form. Do that for 5 or 10 minutes if you can't get outside. Yeah, I know guys that have built a practice basket with 2 old tires and some old chains, set it on top of a box, and now they got a basket to practice putting into. There's lots of things you can do by being creative just to keep yourself sharp. You don't have to go out and play a whole round, but you can do some things like field work that'll help you stay sharp.
Be creative. That's the last thing. Is try and not set limitations on yourself by saying, "Man, I'm really tired. I can't do it." Find ways to be motivated.
Yeah, I mean, I had a real-ish, somewhat job last off season, a year ago in the off season, and lucky enough for me, there was a course in between where I worked and my house. So I had my discs in my car, and once I got off of work, I would go putt, you know, just on the way back home. So, you know, if you can do that, that's the same kind of thing that all these guys said. If you can find something, you know, luckily if you live around here, there's a lot of courses, and so you have a lot more opportunities to just find a basket helps, find, you know, an open area. That's what I did, and it worked really well for me because I was working a lot just about every day, and I didn't really get a whole lot of time to play an actual round, but I had like a little bit of time every day to get some putting in. And then, you know, it just comes down to what I was saying earlier. You know, if you really love it enough and you want it enough, you know, that you know, want to succeed and be successful, you know, it'll happen. You'll make it happen. You'll find that time, those little tiny gaps, and you'll make it happen. I know that, like, yeah, I had maybe an hour after work, and then I had maybe 1 or 2 days off during the week, and I knew that, okay, this is my day off. I better not waste it. I'm going to go get a round in. So that's my advice. Also, another, you know, specifically is that Dynamic Discs YouTube page with the Disc Golf Strong videos. That's another way, even if you're working a lot, you can get in a little workout that keeps you active and keeps you fresh and then strong at the same time before you go to bed, right after you get up, on your lunch break, whenever. There you go.
Okay. He asked if your throwodometer gets so high and you've been throwing a lot of sidearms and your body is feeling sore and you're having sore points, what do you do after your rounds to get better? Disc Golf Strong has a lot of those. All the stretches are good for before and after. And making sure, I mean, when you're done, you don't just go get in your car and you hunch up and you do all this stuff. Give yourself some time to ice. Ice helps. 15 on, 15 off. But allowing your body to be like in a recovery mode. If you go and you tighten everything up, you're just adding to where the soreness is going to be. So keep yourself loose. Maybe Disc Golf Strong, Seth Muncie, he actually talked to me about after my rounds, he told me to go on a walk. Leave my bag, go on a walk, and just keep my blood flowing, allow my body to slow down from the round and start to just alleviate all that pain and that soreness, and it helps your mind. It helps a lot. So doing any little things will help. Bam.
If you're struggling with something like actual tennis elbow, like a real condition or something like that, and you're not just sore from playing disc golf, then time off is your best friend. And it hurts so bad to do. Oh, it is the absolute worst in the whole world when all you want to do is play disc golf, but you're injured, right? I know this because I've been injured recently. The biggest piece of advice I could give you is if you're sore, stretch it out, right? Make sure that, you know, kind of like Ron said earlier, make sure that you're in the type of shape where your body can sustain athletic movement for a longer period of time. And as you do that, you're going to develop that a little bit more. But if it's actually an injury, right? If it's something that's like nagging, where maybe you don't think you tore something, but it bothers you. Every time you go play, it bothers you. take time off. Do not rush back from that, because once it gets worse, you get to the point where maybe you're talking surgery, maybe you're talking a few months off, and that's the worst. So yeah, be careful of that stuff for sure, because it's awful. Yep.
Follow through. Follow through is very important to that kind of thing, because if you think about it, when you throw and just imagine stopping right after you let go, something like this, you know, where you're just like that. Yeah, that face you made right there. Ouch. It's not good. Right, that hurts. So if you just follow through, watch out, Robert, sorry. You know, follow through when you throw. Work on, if you're right-handed and if you're throwing backhand, focus on the left side of your body. You know, and then same if you're throwing, okay, let me start with the backhand, yeah. Right hand, backhand. Focus on the left side of your body and what's that doing. So I will give you a quick demonstration right now. So I'm gonna throw, and then my left side is gonna follow through, forward. And it's gonna follow the right side of my body. So just, you know, left side is gonna follow through. And that just takes a lot of tension off of the elbow. I know from experience, because I've had the same tennis elbow problem for a long time. So I found when I followed through with the left side of my body more and more, it helped a lot. There's no shame in getting a little elbow brace, you know, a little compression brace on there. That also helped me a lot. Same with, you know, you kind of have the same problem with your knees, and those compression braces help with those too. But for elbows specifically, I'd say just work on the follow through. And then, you know, when you're doing a sidearm, instead of the left side, obviously the left side's going places, but now you want to focus on the right side and your right foot and work on just following through, you know, follow the disc. Sometimes when I throw it really hard, a few of these guys know what I'm talking about, I'll throw super hard, and I'll do like 5 steps afterwards. I'm like almost at the basket after I'm throwing, is because I'm just trying to let all that energy, you know, out into the world, and not so I'm fighting against it. So follow through is very important. Specifically for that, what I've found for tennis elbow and stuff like that is if you put a little pressure against your fingers like this, push back, that helps, that feels good. Same down, you know, kind of imagine that you've got like a big handlebar on a motorcycle and just, you know, rev it up. Stuff like this helps. I see some ball golfers, they'll take their clubs, and they have the same issue. They'll take their clubs and they'll kind of do this with them. So that helps a lot too. If you kind of like, hi, how's it going? All this stuff, you know, those are specific arm stretches that can help. Yeah.
You're wondering how to get better at those longer putts outside of 40 feet when you're talking about a step putt, or you're just those big putts that we all want to hit. We see Ricky Wysocki all the time. He's really not nice because he does it way too much in our faces. And but the one thing that worked for me, and I'll give everybody's going to get a real good chance on this one because I think everybody has a different style to their putts. The one thing that has worked for me was my shorter putts, and allowing that repetition and release, and understanding how my body works, so I know that my body is timed together to allow that momentum to be transferred into the disc. Now, the spinning and all that stuff should be as natural as can be, and getting the angles of the disc are also very important. But when I started making longer putts and being more consistent at drawing metal on those longer putts, was from making sure that I understood how to make putts first. 18 footers, lots of them. Cool, because my 18 footers, when I make an 18 footer, it's very, very similar to making a 25 footer. And that 25 footer is very similar to making a 35 footer. And that 35 footer is very similar to making, and you just, that it keeps going back because my body is going to move the same way. It might be a slightly higher release. It might be just a touch more spin. I might dip a little bit lower to explode more. You start to build on those that positive reinforcement and all those things from making putts. You understand how it should feel to make the disc go in.
If you're trying to learn how to do this best, a good way to practice, is to take your normal putting stance, like Eric said, and I'm a firm believer in this too. And if you look at the great step putters who are in the game right now, their putt from 45 looks like the motion looks the same as their putt from inside the circle, right? And I'm gonna let Ron talk about it in a second because he's super good at these, really, really, really good at these. But maybe a way to practice would be if you put yourself at 35, 40 feet, actually it could even be closer if you wanted to, go through your regular putting motion and then follow through so much that you are required to take an extra step or you're going to fall down, right? That's going to help you feel out what sort of power you have to put behind it while keeping the same mechanics in the right place, right? So if you watch somebody like a Ron or like, I'll tell you who is super good at these, and he's not sponsored by us, so I'm sorry, please don't fire me. Paul Ulibarri is a really super duper good step putter. He's so good. And you watch his normal inside the circle putt and watch his step putt, and they look really, really similar, right? So get to where you feel really comfortable in this. This is my putting motion, where you feel really comfortable in this motion, and then just back up even just a little, like 25, and do that to where you have to follow through. That's, I think, a good way to learn and to keep some consistency.
Real quick, two things. Use your legs a little bit more than you would for shorter putts. You know, incorporate your legs a little bit more because that you get a lot of power from your legs. And then also practice, practice, practice. And if you want to be really good, there's a fourth practice in there.
Yeah, we're going to let Ron go last. A couple of things. Robert hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of what you normally do. Two things I tell people. One is you only go for the putt if you believe you're going to make it. He said confidence earlier. Don't do this half-hearted. I'm going to try to put it up high and I hope it goes in, but if it doesn't, I'm kind of just being soft. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. That's my advice to you. Either lay up or go to make the putt. Okay? Now, that's not everybody's philosophy, but that's ours. But Robert said it right. It's really the same basic form. You're just using more leg, like AJ was hitting at. I'm using more leg on that long putt. It helps a lot if you know for a fact I'm going to make every 18-footer, every 25-footer, because now I'm not scared of running by if I miss it. I have this mentality. When I have one of those 50-footers, 60-footers, and I'm going for it, I'm trying to make it, I tell myself in my mind, well, if I make this, this is great. If I don't, I'm not worried about it. So now I'm putting with no fear and nothing but positive thoughts in my head. The only thing that can happen when I go for this is a good thing. You see? Either make it, and that's great. If I don't make it, I'm not worried about it all before I even attempt the putt. So it's about the way you think, and then just do my regular thing with more leg. And Ron's the best at this, so we're saving him for last.
If you practice enough and you keep practicing and believing in yourself, and you're not like not scared to struggle, and you can see, a little glimmer of hope in the back of your head. If you just keep practicing with it, I put in a lot of hours last season, and I got to a point where it's like, okay, I feel like I can run this and I'm gonna hit the basket at least. And that just came from so much practice and falling in love with practice putting. I used to not enjoy it at all because I got so frustrated because I wasn't very good at it. But then I realized, well, this is just going to hold me back, so I might as well enjoy practicing my putting, and that's what did it. That's the key, is just practicing to a point where you can step up to a 40-footer and you're like, okay, yeah, it's like, good, okay, yes, please, I want to be the furthest out so I can make the longest putt on the card. But it's just practice.
Practice.
I'm horribly unqualified to talk about putting. If you've seen me play today, it was bad. But the biggest mistake that I see is people jumping too much. They think too much of their power comes from their legs. The jump, if you're jump putting as opposed to step putting, it's not a big jump. I barely land on the other side of my mini, but it's mostly the regular putt with just a little bit of jump.
All right, so I got a couple of them for you. The first one is about form in general. Okay, so if you are a person who lines up fairly square, like a stance like me to you, and I'm throwing this shot, I'm gonna have to work inside here. I'm gonna have to find a place where I can get more swing, either going down, or what I did was, to solve that problem, was I turned more sideways. So now I'm incorporating more of my arm and my shoulder, and the farther I go out with a sideways stance, the more I can incorporate it until at, 75 feet, I'm still making a throw, but my release point is basically the same as my putt release point, and I'm trying to hit that same sort of shot. And by changing to a more sideways stance, a lot of times you can get more power, and it makes it easier not to struggle. Okay, that's 1. 2, stay on balance. No matter what shot you throw, you want to be in control of what you're doing, because if you're off balance, you're going to throw it up here, you're going to throw it over there, and you're not going to know where that release is. And so by staying on balance, you're controlling your arm swing and where your body is when you make the arm swing. If you're coming up, well, the disc is going to be coming up too. And so it makes a difference in that. Third one, through all that practice that you're doing, you're taking notice of the flight of the disc, and until you see how it flies to get there. And as you get farther out, you're probably going to have to give it more air. You're not going to throw that same low line shot, but you can throw it out and let it break in. Or you can throw an anhyzer and try and work a straight shot. A little bit of ante on it, and still continue to hold a straight line. The thing is that you need to be familiar enough with that flight that you can look about halfway between the basket and you, pick a spot out. It needs to go through that spot right there to get to the basket. If I throw it below that spot, it's going to be below the basket. If I throw it above that spot, it's going to whiff. And by knowing that, getting some idea as far as your distances, you can really have a lot better percentage chance of draining those big ones.
That's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Awesome. So whenever we're trying to hit a tight gap in a fairway, or like through the woods, through a double mando, whatever it is, I know there's a lot of things that people are going to say. Tina mentioned a couple things in her tip. She focuses on the gap. That's a good starting point, is bring your focus away from the things that are on the side of the gap and find something, even if it's not reachable. Find a tree that's all the way down in the gap that's 500 feet away, and you're like, I'm just going to hit that tree that's so far away. So you're going to hit your gap first, and that's what you're going to stay on. I had a breakthrough moment playing in Minnesota. I played at Blue Ribbon Pines. It's a pretty prolific course. You may have seen videos of it or seen the picture of one of the holes out there. It's 444 feet, straight tunnel hole. It's lined with trees the whole way down. The fairway doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't get any smaller. It's just really small the whole way. And I had a breakthrough moment with my leading shoulder. My right shoulder in a right-handed backhanded throw really was my guide of where the disc was going to go. I really over-exaggerated and focused on that follow-through. When I did that, I started really hitting my line and being accurate. I trusted my footwork, and I focused on my shoulder. And I just kept telling yourself, is shoulder, shoulder, shoulder. And I really focused on driving that to my target and to where I want the disc to go, and I found success. So you could try something like that, and we'll see what these guys have to say too.
I'll let somebody else talk about mechanics because I don't have the best mechanics. I have fine mechanics. Fine. But I'd say the biggest thing for me, this was a breakthrough for me. I was at a pretty strong plateau for a little while a few years back, and I realized that when I was playing, it honestly didn't matter what type of course it was, I would outthink myself on any type of shot. Gap shot, hyzer, name it. I would have a really hard time allowing myself to succeed because I'd get so caught up in being like, maybe I won't, you know what I mean? And I would do that all the time, and by the end of the round, leave me alone. By the end of the round, I would be mentally exhausted because all I had done with my mind was just allow it to race, and once I let go of the shot, I'd be like, what if I'm in a bad spot, or what if I don't have a putt, or what if I get a bogey? Okay, that doesn't help you at all, because once you've let go of the shot, there is nothing you can do about it until you get to it, right? Okay, so that principle for me is narrowed into this idea on the tee pad. And this is what I do on the tee pad, or if I'm throwing an upshot, anything but a putt, because I've got a separate thing for that. But when I'm on the tee pad, the one thought in my mind is, what's my target, right? Eric kind of alluded to this, but what's my target? That's the only thing I think about. I've already taken stock of the wind. I've decided what disc I'm going to throw, what line I'm going to throw it on. But the last thing that I think about is, what's my target? Because if I'm so intently focused on something really small, it's a lot easier to not think about the peripheral things, right? To not think about the trees that form the gap or anything else. You could have relatively poor mechanics, or at least okay mechanics, and if you were mentally solid on that, you could hit more gaps than you'd miss, because you're focusing on the right thing. So for me, that's something that is really, really imperative to my game when I'm playing well, is that I'm focusing on the right things and minimizing my thoughts on the tee pad. So instead of worrying, I just think, what's my target? Hit target. Let's just turn your brain off. That's it.
When I'm playing in the woods or any place where I'm trying to hit gaps, a lot of times what I do and what I found myself doing, a couple years ago, was working backwards. Thinking about, where am I trying to land the disc? Not only where am I want the disc to hit the ground, but where do I want it to finish? Stuff like that. And so when you think about it, when you think about the end first, you can then work your way back to the tee pad. And that's what I've found myself doing a lot over the past 5 years when it comes to wooded courses and hitting gaps like that. Because it's a little bit tougher to just think about, okay, I'm just trying to, hit this gap. And it's also a lot harder to just throw it right to the gap, because the disc is going to keep going. A lot of times what I'll do is I will think, when I'm faced with a tight gap, or, a tight window or a tight gap that I'm trying to hit, I'll almost think about what's going on 50 to 100 feet past that. And that's where my focus is past the gap, and then working my way back from there. And, that is a tip that will help you out in a lot of other aspects when you get higher and higher skill-wise. But working backwards is big. And when you're looking at, a tough gap, say, here specifically, we're throwing from 18's tee pad to the practice basket. There's a pretty straight line, and it's a small gap, and it's kind of a low ceiling. And to think about just that, you kind of get a little claustrophobic. But if you kind of open your mind up a little bit and you think about what's 50 to 100 feet past that, it becomes a little bit easier to, okay, I can do that. I've got so much more space now, so I can do that a lot easier than just this, tiny little shot. So looking past the gap helps a lot too.
Two things I will tell you. The first one, and this is not me, and I'm still working on it. If you learn to throw sidearm, you got a huge advantage, because you never turn your back. You're looking at it, and you can see that gap. If you're a guy like Eric Oakley, who can hyzer flip an understable disc and an understable mid-range through those holes, that's a huge advantage, because you're not turning your back. So about hitting that gap, if you learn to throw the sidearm, which I'm still working on, that's a good thing. The second thing is, when I'm in the woods in a wooded throw, I throw slower discs. I will throw my understable putter and my understable mid-range, my DD Deputy and my DD Evidence, because I can control those in the woods in those tight 10-foot, 15-foot gaps. That helps a lot. And one of the things I do is I use a technique which I call walking around the disc. Thank you, Danny. If I'm trying to hit the gap right there where the camera is, and I know, like I said, like everyone said before, concentrate on what you want to do, not all the things you don't want to have happen. I want to hit that gap right in the middle, right there. So I'm going to put my disc right on that line. So when I take my approach and I take my steps, watch what happens to my disc. Have y'all noticed what happened to my disc? It hasn't moved yet. All I did was, when I did my run up, my walk up, I walked around the disc, and then I commit and go right down the line. So I stay with it. So if it's going to look on a normal stance like this, pow, right down that gap. So that's a couple things that may help you along the way when you're trying to hit those tight gaps.
Lots of people tend to think that you're aiming with your release, but you're aiming with the reach back. The footwork and reach back is how you aim the backhand. So if I'm throwing a line there, I want my feet to be, my toe and my heel of my left foot, my right foot to be lined up at that gap. And then when I'm reaching back, I'm gonna grab this. I want to reach the disc straight back, so the disc can go straight forward, unimpeded. Yeah, some people, I used to reach across as I reach back, and then the disc will come around, and that makes it a lot harder just to hit gaps. I'm almost done. So it's just important to reach the disc straight back and make sure the disc can go straight forward. Lots like what A-Ray said, but the aiming is with the footwork and the reach back, not with the release.
Well, I figured if I went last, somebody else would cover it, and Danny did. It's setting up. How you set up, it covers two questions. It covers the question you had with the grip lock and the question you had with the gap, and that's setting your body up to where when the disc comes out of your hand, it's headed the right direction. And then through repetition and doing it over and over, I really don't even have to, if I see the shot and I do my steps back, I'm not gonna look back at that spot until after I've thrown the disc. I pretty much know it's right here, I set up, I come back, disc is gone, yep. It's all about the footwork and lining it up correctly, more than anything else. If you're set up offline, say you're a little bit too far forward, you're gonna come across to here instead of coming across to here. And so you're gonna have, in effect, a grip lock, and you're gonna miss the gap. So a lot of that is the setup.
I will constantly look back at my feet when I've missed a gap and see where I planted and go back to where I was. And then I'll be like, yep, I am going straight at that tree. That's exactly why that happened. So be willing to reflect inward and understand that you were wrong. Wasn't the disc, wasn't anything else. It's another thing that Tina and I like to talk about in our clinics, and I would imagine everyone here can be in agreement on, is take film of yourself. Make sure you're doing the right things, and it's like, all right, that one felt really good, I hit the gap. And if you have somebody who took video of that, you can understand what your body did, so you can start to try and make that happen again, that positive memory bank. We keep storing to it, so take video of yourself. Guys, thank you for coming out and supporting this bag of tricks presented by Dynamic Discs. We are in this team clinic that's been able to be on, and it's been awesome to have you here. Be sure to check out the Dynamic Disc Carrollton store right across the street. I hope most of you, or if everyone, has been there to go and see those guys. They are a big reason this event happened, and they are doing incredible things in the DFW and Texas disc golf area. So make sure you guys keep supporting that. And on another track is continue to support all the local clubs in the area that are trying to make disc golf better by giving you more minis to play for some more bag tags, run tournaments, run fundraisers. Support that. Those things will make disc golf better. If you want to see this sport grow as much as we do, support it locally and support it on the bigger scales with supporting Dynamic Disc, because we want to keep making awesome things happen. So be dynamic, guys, and thank you so much for coming out.
Make sure and follow these guys on social media as well. It's always exciting to get to see them in person, and I know that they work really hard to get to see as many of you guys in person as they can. But they feel the support and the love from you guys whenever you do follow them, whenever you comment on their videos, whenever you watch their clinics and things like that. So make sure and follow them on social media as they're kind of touring the country this year.